welcome to West Stockwith, the most northern village in Nottinghamshire. As the post van enters from the south, so does the River Trent, coming up north into our village past a big works. On the northeast corner of the old Sherwood Forest, on a tidal stretch of the River Trent, north of Nottingham, where the Trent flows north and begins to meander by Newark, Retford and Worksop over to the west, Lincoln to the east, goes past Gainsborough and up to West Stockwith, next to Misterton, at the very top of your map there. It's an area of 3 huge power stations. Their chimneys now overlook the Trent Valley, but at the turn of the century, the Morris chemical works would have dominated the landscape. The works had 7 huge chimneys. This building on the left is still there today, but this is as it is now. A very large works, many chimneys. It turned out Lysol, phenol, and had their own drum factory for these chemicals. The youth club members of the village have put this video map together with some of the senior citizens, our older friends, who remember Mr. Morris, the owner of the chemical plant, coming on the train from Doncaster to Misterton, where he was picked up in his own private train and brought with a little shunter along the railway line that went along the side of this road. The works produced the predecessors of soap and disinfectants of today, one of the main uses being of a disinfectant used as sheep dip. One of the other main products, phenol, was last heard of in carbolic acid in Lifebuoy soap. The chimneys would need regular maintenance, and where today huge firms of steeplejacks see to the chimneys at the power station, some men in the village would have seen to this, scaling this wooden ladder, taking up their own wooden scaffolding, and on the top here we have, on the top left-hand side, Mr. Ray Walker, who founded our youth club. In 1928, the works closed for good, and the place was blasted down. The children were forbidden to play in the ruins where lots of caustic chemicals and acids were left. One of our old friends remembers the men working here with moustaches turned green with the fumes. The machinery that stood on these concrete piers was transported to Australia, where there was more call for sheep dip. This concrete block remained. It had the hooter on which called people to work and marked out the shifts. These ruins remained for 30 or 40 years. Flues underground, carrying out the fumes to the chimneys. In 1957, the grounds were levelled off and a new factory was set up on the old site. This produced chemicals for agriculture. The chimney didn't last long, was gone by the late 70s, and this is as it looks today. Now, sadly, it is closed too. It is now only a store. West Stockwith was founded originally as a port at the junction of the River Idle, the Chesterfield Canal, which comes through this bridge, and the River Trent. This is the basin as it looked about 1812. A sea-going ship there on the left, and the lock would have been over to the left onto the Trent. The big building in the background is today the lockkeeper's wharf shed. This is as it looked in living memory. Sea-going barge in the foreground. The yacht club with a fairly modern looking yacht in the foreground. And this is as it looked when it was a busy shipbuilding time. Our old friends remember the boat in the background being built. This ship, the Wembley, just in front of the Crown Inn. Still there today. A rear view of the Wembley.
This is across the basin today.
Is it today?
The Crown Hotel in the distance.
Oh God. What are you doing now?
The bridge to the Chesterfield Canal. The yacht club. And there they are in the olden times. The bridge on the right hand side.
The bridge, and the yacht club,
Yacht club in the middle.
and the wharf building.
Right.
The lock to the Chesterfield, to the Trent. Right across the lock to the Crown Hotel.
My parents took this pub on when it was derelict and reopened it.
Disused waterway.
The Chesterfield Canal looking towards Misterton. Now only used for leisure.
Pack it in. Stand right up to it.
The last freight traffic was carried in 1957.
The River Trent has a bore very similar to the Severn, but it's known as the Eiger. And every spring and autumn it would rush in. People would come from miles around to watch it, but the people in the village would expect to be flooded. This was no great torture, as everybody was expecting it and prepared for it by moving up the carpets and furniture from downstairs. That's the old police house, which is still there today, but the big building on the left has gone. Business as usual for the hay cart. Going on down past Sewell's shop, which still stands today. It's the last one of this row of terrace houses. There's the floodgate. Stops it flooding further inland. This is the old Osboat ferry, with the ferry inn on the other side of the Trent from West Stockwith at East Stockwith. It's the building as it is today. There's the ferry inn. On this side now, no sign at all of the ferry, just the flood bank. Another picture of the Osboat, full of carriages. People would go over to the market at Gainsborough. One of the old men remembers carrying 35 carriages over in one day. These are the last 4 ferrymen. The ferry stopped in 57, and this is the last ferry boat, a rowing boat.
This flood bank stops the place being flooded. And this is exactly where Sewell's shop would have been, and where the water would have rushed past.
This is old Sewell's butcher's shop. Over there, it's the old police shop.
The old police station.
Evening all.
Sewell's Butcher and Grocer, notice 1940 odd. The sign that might have been outside.
She was to sell, the general dealer, you know.
Yeah.
Anything, she was to sell all sorts. And she lived here. It was a lovely little place. The shop was there, and then she was living in the little bungalow outside.
Let's take that door.
Wiltshire bacon.
Original Wiltshire bacon. What do you think it is?
Stop windows going.
No, it's not. I think it's a gas lamp.
Yeah.
Or where they attach the gas to.
Your gas lamp goes here on top, 'cause it's got nowhere.
Where's this?
Gas.
It's a gas lamp, is it?
Yeah. It's a gas lamp. That's
An Anglepoise lamp.
See the switch on the wall? There's a little switch right at the back of the wall. So they could have angled it out. They got the mirrors in front of it to spread the light. I think.
And they had plants on there, but look at the butcher's stalks. There's quite a few.
See the rail? What do you think that rail's for?
There's got window time to meet on.
That's right. Outside again. This is Sewell's shop, is the left-hand building of this row. The far one on this shot. The sluice gate built to replace Vermeuden's. One of our grandfathers helped to build this. Note the comparison here. That's the same building. Where there was once a big row, there's now a pair. Across the bridge, on the right hand side there, would have been another of the old industries of the village, the flax mill. Can be seen in front of the big tree.